welcome to a video tutorial for this flower crown or cat scarf. If you're lucky, you might get it a couple of photos with it as a crown. But we hope you enjoy it. Please like, share and subscribe, and we hope to see you soon. Thanks. Bye. Okay, so for this project you'll need some yarn, probably down on the finer weight or end of yarn ranges. I've got these three here. I'm going to use this one. They're all cotton acrylic blends. This one here and this one here are a 2 to 3 weight, and this one here is a 1 to 2 weight. I'm going to use this for my leaves and the chain, and this for my flower, the yellow in the center and the white for the petals. So I'm just making kind of standard daisies for this filming project. The one that I've made previously, I've made in multiple colors, so you can see you can make this however you want it to be, with lots of different colors, or just one or two colors like I'm doing for mine today. You'll need a crochet hook to correspond to your yarn, and I'm using 2 millimeters. You'll need some scissors to snip your ends, a darning needle with a relatively fine sharp point. We're doing some hand sewing, and it'll be better if you've got a relatively sharp point on your needle, and an optional tape measure to take a measurement of your cat's head and or neck circumference. As always, I'll include a guide to standard cat neck circumferences in the description box below, but if you want to use this as a flower crown, then you might need a measurement of your cat's head circumference, but if you can kind of ballpark that as well. That's not an easy thing to measure, so you can you just work off a ballpark figure. Okay, so as I showed you before, here's the one I've made previously, and you can see you've got a chain with little leaves attached to it, and then you've got flowers that you can add as many or as few as you like. This one here, I've attached one at each leaf point, so wherever there's a leaf, there's a flower, but you get to space your leaves and your flowers however you like. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do today. This one here I've added, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 flowers. Yeah, that's right, 7 flowers. But on today's one, I'm actually only going to add 4 flowers. I'm going to show you, I'm going to do it slightly differently. But for Melba's size, this is fine to go around her head, and it's made to go twice. Okay, and then it's also big enough to slip over her head and have as a little scarf as well. Okay, so I'm not going to make as many flowers today, and as you know, I'm going to make them in just 2 colors. But I'm going to show you how I just do the basic elements, and then you can add as many or as few as you like. So to make the chain, we'll make them separately. So we'll be making the chain with the leaves, and then we'll be sewing on the flowers that we will make separately. So to make the leaf chain, you'll need to know how to make a chain. Well, first slip knot onto your hook, make a chain, how to slip stitch, single crochet and half double crochet, and then moving on to the flowers, you'll need to know how to make a magic ring, how to single crochet, and we'll be doing a puff stitch for the petals. Now, we'll talk about that after. Yeah, we'll talk about that after. So and then just some basic hand sewing techniques so you can just see I've hand sewed the flower onto the chain there, and finishing off weaving in ends, that type of thing. Okay, so yeah, definitely beginner friendly, just a little bit of fun. So let's get started. Okay, so let's get started with the leaf chain, and you'll make a slip knot onto your hook with the color that you're using for your leaves. Now you just need to think ahead a little bit here, and you need to decide how much distance you want in between your leaves. Okay, so I've gone with 20 chains, and it might vary for you according to the hook size and the yarn weight that you're using, but and also it will depend how far apart you want the leaves to be. Now you might have some leaves closer together. You might have the leaves just at uniform intervals around the chain like I have. But you really get to create with this. You can decide, sometimes you might have 20 chains. That's 20 chains here between the two leaves, and other times you might have 5 chains. You might have 2 leaves close together. So you get to decide how you want to space these leaves. So I'm going to make mine uniform, and I'm going to make them 20 chains apart. Okay, so go ahead and chain your the number that you want. So just a simple chain stitch to the number or the distance that you want between your leaves. And I'll do the same. I'll chain my 20 and I'll meet you back in a moment. Okay, so I've got my chain of 20 there, and now we're going to, so each leaf will use 6 chains, so we're going to add an extra 6 to whatever number you've chosen in between your leaves. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now in the second chain from your hook, you're going to place a slip stitch. In the next chain, a single crochet. In the next chain, 2 half double crochets. So that's 1 and 2. So 2 in that same chain. Then a single crochet in the next chain. And a slip stitch in the next. So that makes just this little narrow leaf. Now you don't want the leaves to be too big, especially if you're placing it on the head. If you're placing it on the around the neck, you could make them a little bit bigger, but this is the size leaf that I'm making for this project. Okay, so now what you'll do is you'll just slip stitch into the base, the next chain. Okay, so just into, anchor that on the main chain, and then you're going to chain the number that you want in between the leaves again. 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to go ahead and chain another 20, and then I'm just going to repeat this process to the length that I want, okay, for my leaf chain. Now just to give you an idea of how much I did previously. Now Melba's quite a small cat, okay, small to medium sized cat. So for her head circumference, this is fine, and I'll tell you how I made mine at about 56 centimeters long, okay, and that, as I said at the beginning, gives me enough to double it over and place it onto her head, but also it gives me enough to place it over her head and use it as a scarf. Okay, so you'll need to work out, using your cat's head and or neck circumference, how long you'll need your leaf chain to be. Okay, so you just need to estimate that. This doesn't have to fit perfectly. As long as you can, if you want to use it as a scarf, you can slip it over the head, and if you want to use it as a little flower crown, if your cat will let you, you just can place it on top of the head, okay, underneath the ears. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now I'm going to make 7 leaves, okay? So I'm going to repeat this process 7 times. So if you need to go back and just double check how to make the leaf, then, go back to the timestamp. Otherwise, just continue on making your chains, creating your leaves until you've got the number and or the length that you want, okay? And as I said, space your leaves however you want them to be spaced. So I'm going to go ahead and do mine, and I'll be back once I've done that. Okay, so I've done my last leaf there, and now all that it is to finish this off is to slip stitch into our beginning chain. So what you want to do is make sure that it's not twisted. So just go and untwist and find your last chain and you're going to slip stitch into that last chain. just to join and make a loop. And then you can yarn over and pull through and snip off your tail end. So we're going to weave in that tail. So what I tend to do with, whenever I've got two tails, and it depends on the project, but whenever I've got two tails, what I tend to do is just tie them in a little knot. Actually, I'll just do a single knot here, and then you've just got to weave in your tail ends into the back of that last leaf. And I'll kind of assume that you know what to do here, but it's just, you know, just got to weave it down, both of them into the back of this last leaf. Let's see if we can get my needle on there. There we go. So you go ahead, weave in those tail ends. I'll finish off mine here. So you just want to weave up into the stitches in the back there. And you can also, if you feel confident doing so, you can weave it. Oops, my yarn split there. I'm going to have to go back. But the other, you can also weave, if you feel confident, weave it up into the chain. But you've got more chance of it coming unstuck there. So I'm going to pause here. I need to pull my yarn back out and thread with all of my strands in my yarn. So I'm going to go ahead and weave those in off camera, and I'll meet you in a moment and we'll make the flowers. Okay, so I've woven in those ends there, and I'm just going to snip off the excess. And now we'll move on to making the flowers. So put your leaf chain aside and take your center color. Now you can make the flowers all in one color as well, but I'm going to make my centers a different color. So I'm making yellow and white, as you know. So make a magic ring with your center color. Now there's lots of ways to make a magic ring as well, so you do it your way. And then we're going to place 6 single crochets into our ring. So that's 1 and 2, oops, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, and then you'll pull your tail end to close your ring, and we're going to slip stitch over on the first stitch, but we're going to finish our slip stitch with our new color. So get that hook in there. Because we didn't chain one, it can be a little bit tight, and pull up a loop. But then we're going to finish off using our petal color. Okay, so place how I do this. I just place my yarn over my hook and then just pull through with the new color. Okay. Now you can snip off your tail end here. So snip off your yellow, or your equivalent of the yellow. And now we're going to make puff stitch petals. So let me just get one that I've made previously. Here we go. So we've got the center area, and we're going to make, this hasn't been quite finished off yet, so it probably needs to be pulled a little bit tight. There we go. So we're going to make 7 petals. Okay, so it makes it a little bit jammed in there, but it helps the petals kind of puff out a little bit, gives them a little bit of dimension. Okay, so chain 3, 2 and 3, And you can go back and tighten those ends in a moment. But oops, hook came out, into that same stitch that you slip stitched into, so the same space that you slip stitched into, we're going to yarn over, insert our hook, and pull up a loop. But you want to pull that loop quite a way out. Then yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, again, once again pull it up to meet the others, yarn over, pull up a loop, that's 3, 4, and final time 5. Okay, then we're going to yarn over and pull through all of those loops on the hook and chain 1. Now you'll need to go back, for this first one you'll need to go back and tighten that space, just pulling on your tail ends. And then you're going to chain 3, just like you did at the beginning, to mirror that beginning. And then you're going to slip stitch into the next stitch, where we're going to make our next petal. And then you're just going to repeat that process. So chain 3, and we'll make one more puff stitch together. So insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, this is number 2. So you do this 5 times, so just make sure you're pulling out enough length on your loops. 3, 4, and final time 5. So it'll get really tight. If you don't pull out enough length, it'll get really, really tight in there. Okay, and then you pull through all of those loops and chain 1 to secure. Okay, chain 3, and then slip stitch. So just make sure you don't miss. We want to have 7 petals. Well, I do. You can have just 6 if you want to, but I make this as 7. Okay, by making it, yeah, nice and crowded in there with the petals. So go ahead, finish off moving around, just repeating that same process, that chain 3, your puff stitch in that same stitch that you've just slip stitched into. So we'll do, this will be our 3rd one, 4th, 5th, 6th, and in this last one, the 7th petal. Okay, because we've worked into where we slip stitched, that's how we get the extra petal, even though we only had 6 stitches at the beginning. Okay, so go ahead and finish that off. I'll meet you when I get around here to my 7th petal, and we'll finish off, I'll show you how we'll finish off the flower. And then you'll make as many of those as you want. Okay, and I'll come back and we'll finish off tidying up the flower, weaving in the ends, and then I'll show you how to sew it onto your leaf chain. So continue on. I'll meet you once I'm at my 7th petal, like I said, and I'll see you in a moment. Okay, so I've just finished off my last petal there, and I just need to chain my 3. And then to finish off, slip stitch into that first petal. Okay, so it gets a bit jammed in there, but like I said, that's done on purpose. So just do the best you can at this point. So pull that nice and tight, that slip stitch, and then just yarn over and pull through. So leave a reasonably long tail, because you want to have enough to sew on your flowers to the leaf chain. So snip that off, and then just tighten all your tail ends. Move this tail end that you've just tied off, move that down towards the center. Okay, and then you may have to, your magic ring might have come undone a little bit, so you might need to tighten that up, pull on that tail end, and just, make any adjustments that you need to. Now, how I finish these off is I take the 2 tails from my center color, and because there's so little space to weave these in, what I do, and you can weave them in if you prefer, is I tie a nice tight little knot there, and then I tie it again, and one more time. So I tie 3 knots in there. So tie it nice and tight, and then you can just, now like I said, if you prefer to weave it in these tail ends into the yellow, then, or your equivalent of yellow, then go ahead. But for me, I just tie that little knot and just snip off the end. So I've just got that little knot at the back there. Okay, and that won't be seen because it'll be obviously the back of the flower. Then you will, go ahead and make as many flowers as you want. And once you've got as many as you want, and you've done all those little center pieces, like woven in the ends of these center pieces, we're going to start to sew them onto the leaf chain. So I'm going to go ahead, finish off all my little flowers. So you'll leave these tails, okay, for sewing in. You can weave in, if you like, these beginning tails. I tend to just weave them in when I'm sewing the daisies on, or the flowers on, but you can weave in these first tails if you want to as well. So I'm going to go away for a moment and just finish off all of my flowers. I've got 1, 2, I've got 4 flowers this time. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just finish off those center points and get them ready for sewing. Okay, so there I've got my 4 daisies ready and my leaf chain. Now, as I showed you before, with this one I've sewn on a flower at every leaf, but I'm not going to do that with this one. I want them to be, more spread apart. But what's a good idea is just to wrap it into the loops that it will be, and work out where you want to place your flowers, because I don't really need any at the back. I'm going to just go with placing them at the front. Okay, so I'll place one on that leaf, that leaf, that leaf, and that leaf. Okay, so that's how I'm going to sew mine on. So let's just sew one on together. Let's just move those ones out, and I'm going to sew onto one of these leaves. So I'll show you what I do. You can do this however you want to do it. Just simple sewing techniques to sew this on. So I'll just thread that needle. Okay, so I want to sew it on, and you don't have to sew it on, on the leaves. You can sew it on, you could sew it right on top of the leaf. You could sew it just in front of the leaf. You could sew it just behind the leaf. However you want to do this. I'm going to go just kind of half on, half off. So you'll just come down into the chain in the back there. So you want to align it with where your tail end was, or where it ended up. And then what I do is I just go down, so I'll get this other one out of the way. So just go down into the back of the petal there. And you're basically just going to sew over the chain. So I'll just come over to the other side and through the other side. So you just make a little loop like that just holds it onto the chain. You can do that, let's say twice, 3 times, however many times you want to. Like that. And then I'm going to weave in this tail end to bring me across to the other side, because I want to also anchor the other side of this chain. So I'm just going to weave through. And I'm going to weave in that tail end in a moment. So you can see you can weave in that tail end beforehand to get it out the way. For me, I'm not too bothered by it. I'll just weave it in at the end. So then come over to the other side, come up and through the chain, and then do the same thing. Just make a little loop over the chain. Like so. And then you can anchor it a second time, third time if you like. And that should be enough. And then just weave the rest of this tail into the back of the petals. And then you'll weave, of course, your second one as well. So that's sitting on there like that. Okay, and what I'm going to actually do, because so when you're hand sewing at the end, you can finish up little imperfections if you want to, but you know, the imperfections also make this handmade, so you know, you might not want to. But see, for me, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just come down. See this bit here, it's not, see, it's exposed, this little bit of the yellow here. I'm actually going to fix that up with just a little bit of hand sewing. I'm going to come through. So yeah, it gives you an opportunity when you're hand sewing at the end, so I'm just going to join that together a little bit more there to disguise that join. And like I said, you don't have to bother to do that, that's just me being a little bit fussy there. But you can see I'm hiding a bit more of that join. And then of course I'll just weave this into the back. Just pull that nice and tight. See, it just disguises it a little bit. And push down and through to the other side. Let's see if that looks better. I think it does. Yeah, it does look slightly better. And then I'll just finish weaving this in. So in the back here. So you go ahead and attach your flowers. Do your little bit of hand sewing. Attach them where you want them to sit. And I'll meet you once I've woven in all of mine, or sorry, sewn on all of mine and woven in my ends. So I'll just snip that tail end, and I'm going to weave in that second tail, and I'm going to repeat the process for all of my flowers in that, you know, in those areas that I want them, because I'm doubling this over. They'll just be in the front, on the front 4 leaves, not those back 3. Okay, so yeah, I'll go ahead and finish that off. You do the same, and we'll meet each other shortly. Okay, so here's my 2 flower crown scarves, side by side. The one I finished today, and this one here. So obviously a lot more flowers on this one. This one, the flowers are just at the front of the chain. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, just a little bit of summery fun. And yeah, if if you make this up and you've got the time, please send along your photos to catventurous.community@gmail.com, or you can tag us on social media at catventurous.crochet. I always love to see what you come up with, you know, the colors you use, the yarn you use, and of course I always love to meet your cat. So please send those along if you get some time. And share this tutorial, or share our tutorials with your friends. Please like them. It just helps to build my channel and show me that you're enjoying what I'm doing. So please, if you've got time, please smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. So thanks very much for being here, and we hope to see you soon. Thanks. Bye. Thanks. Bye. Thanks, Melba. Good girl. Ready to go? Yeah, you can go. What a good girl you are. There you go. Ready to go? Oh yeah.